Hello, Reject Nation. I'm Greg Alba.
And I'm a Marvel shill.
Hell yeah. We're here today to talk about Captain Mar-Vell. Spoiler talk. We saw it for a second time over at ScreenX. This will be a podcast spoiler-like discussion. There'll be timestamps in the description box for you guys to work off of. If you want to skip around and whatnot, we have some notes here, so that way, you know, talking points. Before going into this review, though, I did want to say that we're going to be doing a separate video. It's probably going to be uploaded a little bit after this, because we do know how some of the politics surrounding this film outside have affected a lot of the pre-viewing experience and the actual viewing experience.
The whole conversation.
The whole conversation, and also, yeah, because on our non-spoiler review, it's about like 30 to 35% are dislikes on it. And so what we're going to do is we're going to react to some of the comments and go over a lot of those things. Brie Larson's comments, political agendas, feminism, you know, all those fun things surrounding the film, because we got some opinions on it. But, you know, for this spoiler talk, and I'm sure some shades of gray of that will be in this discussion, but we're going to keep that to a minimal as much as possible here, because we want to talk about just the movie itself, the execution of it itself in its spoiler talk. So keep a lookout for that talk, because that's going to be a fun one. We've never done something like that, where we like go through the comments and everything. I've never done anything like that.
Subject ourselves to a medley of hot takes.
It's going to be quite an interesting experience on both of our ends. And one thing I want to clarify, because we did watch this a second time, and I'll say this. Get ready to hit that dislike button. I liked it more the second time I watched it. If you guys watch our non-spoiler, John was more enthusiastic about it than I was. I was pretty much like everything. My basic non-spoiler breakdown of it was, I thought supporting cast was really great. It was a really funny movie. That's something I didn't really touch on in the non-spoiler, but that's a big part of why I ultimately recommended it, was because I did laugh a lot. I thought the visuals were spectacular in the movie. The action was really good, but some moments not so great. And one thing we didn't touch on too was the music is also very good in the movie as well. So there was plenty enough to recommend it. And my main issue was Brie Larson's performance. I thought it was a two-dimensional character. Didn't really connect with her role. I couldn't tell if it was just the directing or if it was just her performance in general. I will say this: watching this a second time, I liked her more. I didn't fall in love with her performance. I didn't fall in love with the character of Carol Danvers, but I got more of what was going on and what she was doing. And that's why, you know, some people were like, this doesn't make any sense. If, you know, Greg just talking bad about Brie Larson's performance, why would he recommend this movie that, freaking sell out female propaganda? And I'm like, well, no, that's not it. It's that there's more to this movie than just Brie Larson.
Movies have a lot of different moving parts, and you can like some of them, but actually not others.
And
it's crazy.
In all fairness, rewatching it, I did kind of forget when we were reviewing that there were moments where I was charmed by her, even though I felt it was a very surface performance the first time around. I still found plenty of moments where I did find her overall pretty charming. So if I'll probably say this in the next video too. If you're not open-minded to hearing what we have to say about this movie, because we're going to go over some pros and cons with the film, and if you're not open-minded to hearing it, or not open-minded to respectfully disagree,
or if you're just not open to the idea that people could possibly like this movie,
as just a movie, then okay, stay if you want.
It's up to you now. It's in your hands.
Yeah, go for it.
Make the right choice.
And we also, usually when we do our spoiler talks for our talking points, we tend to save like the best stuff for last. But rather than worrying about making sure we get because there are things with movies like this where if we don't touch on it, people will be like, why didn't you talk about this? And we're just going to talk about those. That's like our first 14 things here.
We're going in order of importance.
We'd rather just get those out of the way and then move on. And also, we're sitting by our windows, so if you see the light changing a lot, it's because the sun keeps coming in and out.
The miracle of nature.
Well, first off, thanks to ScreenX for hooking up. This was not a press screening by any means. This was, it was just that the ScreenX theater and the people behind ScreenX were willing to comp us some tickets to go watch it for their experience. And this is the one part of the podcast where there's footage playing over it, because it's one of those things where there's a center screen and then it encompasses the rest of the theater on the left and right side of you.
Get that peripheral vision.
And I got to tell you guys, like, it really does help with an immersive experience. There, especially in its space sequences, any of its like crazy visual moments in this movie, it really does engross you throughout the movie, and it's in it quite a lot actually. You know, sometimes for like ScreenX or IMAX formats, you're not when movies do IMAX and they convert to full format, it's really intermittent. In this movie, they do it quite a bit,
frequently.
So, yeah. And so I want to say thank you to you guys for that, because I would love to go to ScreenX again. I had a great time experiencing it over there, and recommend watching it in that format. So, first, a spoiler thing to talk about that immediately got an instant applause from the crowd both times we watched it, because first time was a Disney press screening, but those Disney press screenings tend to have a mixture. It's not just press.
Yeah, I feel
there's a lot of people who are just audience goers who got tickets.
Yeah, it seems like those are always kind of a hodgepodge of press. Yeah, like a few regular audience people, and then like the folks who would show up at like an influencer screening. You know, like they're tiers or something.
Yeah, and then this one just primarily regular goers. And it starts off with this cool Stan Lee tribute. You know how the Marvel opening logo tends to have all the characters and how it's always evolved. And this one was just all a bunch of the Stan Lee appearances, which was great. And on the second viewing, I actually didn't notice this until the second time I watched it, because when you watch these, you're first on the lookout, like, is that going to be Stan Lee? Is that Stan Lee? Yeah, it's Stan Lee.
Where is he?
And then I noticed this time he kept repeating the same line. He said, trust me, or something like that, right?
Something like that, yeah.
And then I saw he was reading a script. And you said, was it the Mallrats?
It's Mallrats, and the first time I saw it, I thought it was just a plain white script. Yeah. And then the second time I realized it had a bright red cover with the word Mallrats on it. And
I didn't notice that.
Appears in that movie, so yeah, it's like an inside joke.
I love it. We do reactions on this channel. One of my favorite reactions to ever watch are Kevin Smith's reactions. And man, I really want to hear what he has to say about that. I don't know if they got his permission to do it or if they just threw it in there.
I feel like he knows. Seems like he's kind of like the Godfather, you know, your jolly uncle of the film community, especially for like comic book tentpole movies. So I bet that was cleared.
That was a great cameo, wonderful tribute. And then, you know, other thing too. Mar-Vell is a woman.
Is a bitch.
Slut. What's she doing being a woman with female body parts?
Get a Y chromosome, why don't you?
I know it's been an argument for switching up genders or races, ethnicities in films before. And, you know, like, you know, that feminist angle that people talk about. With
Fem-washing.
Such bullshit. For me in the movie itself, though, for someone who's not familiar with who Mar-Vell is, I wasn't bothered. I thought it actually fits with the context because they kind of treat Mar-Vell as a mother figure to Carol Danvers in this movie. So I thought that makes it more effective, especially when you're hopping in and out of the Supreme Intelligence. Yeah. And because that's like, oh, she can't remember her past, but this person is a reflection of someone who was very important to her. So having this mother-like figure, I actually thought was pretty effective for the movie. You know, she has like a shit dad, but a strong female figure in her life as Carol Danvers. So for me, it doesn't really, like, when I think about that, even if it was a guy in the movie, I don't really feel like it would have done.
I don't think it would have changed the character all that much.
It would have been
either way.
It would have been a different debate. It would have been another man has to help save, you know, give powers to Carol Danvers. It just would have been a different argument at that point, you know.
And for some of the film's, you know, more progressive undertones, it makes a bit more sense to have her be a woman in this context. And yeah, to me, I mean, like, I was kind of aware that, yeah, they changed this character some. I get why you would be kind of upset by that if you love the source material. I understand that point of view, but yeah, I thought it added to the movie overall.
Yeah, I liked it because Annette Bening's great in it.
She's great, yeah.
She's great, and even when she's not being the Mar-Vell character and just in Supreme Intelligence role, where by the end of the movie, when you know, they've got Carol captured in the Supreme Intelligence world. And Annette Bening's being evil. I really believed her there too, actually. Yeah. Normally, like those, you know, switching a villain for who's not, like, she's not playing the villain of it, but switching into villainous position can be cheesy and not believable, but Annette Bening sells the shit out of it.
Oh yeah, because when she's real Mar-Vell, she has this very reassuring presence, but when she's the Supreme Intelligence, she has this cold. There's like her eyes have that Jaws-y quality.
She's kind of scary.
Yeah,
she's pretty scary.
She's got this like quiet menace because she's like a supreme computer.
And for Mar-Vell to not be a fully fleshed out character in this movie either. You need it. I felt like it was good to get someone like Annette Bening who can bring an extra layer of, because when you look at the script, because scripting is one of the issues we'll go into later, but if you look at the script, especially for Mar-Vell, she's not really a nuanced character in the movie, but Annette Bening brings that additional depth behind every line she gives in here, even in the weirder moments of the movie.
She got her homework done.
Yeah. So what's next?
Hey, this is one of my favorite aspects of this movie, actually, and I kind of shout the trailers out because while I don't think this movie cut great trailers, I think I'm very forgiving of that because the reason is there were a lot of surprises they were hiding, and one of my favorites is what they did with Talos or Talos.
Talos.
I really enjoyed the way they flipped his character around. I went in expecting Ben Mendelsohn to play kind of the same villainous character he's been typecast in for a long time now. And yeah, the whole reversal with the Skrulls being refugees and the Kree actually being the oppressors to them, like that is another area of this movie that, it flirts with progressive ideas anyway, because refugee situations are very relevant to the world right now. It's a big issue.
I mean, Kree being the bad guy isn't exactly a surprise with this movie, especially coming off of like Guardians and stuff.
Yeah, of course.
So that's not a surprise, but flipping the Skrull dynamic I thought was handled really well because, if you've seen the EW first look or any prep leading up to this movie, a lot of people knew that Ben Mendelsohn was posing as a human inside a shield.
Yeah.
So when you see Ben Mendelsohn, there were some people who I could audibly hear people going, "Is he a bad guy? Is he like when you're seeing Ben Mendelsohn and." And then when they give it away, when they have the Skrull body in the autopsy, I've heard a couple of people be like, "Man, they gave that away early, huh? They gave it away early." But that's smart because by the time you get to the reveal when they're at Maria Rambeau's house, that's when his character comes alive because you hear all these early reaction comments of Ben Mendelsohn steals the show. Ben Mendelsohn's great in it. And there were like early on in the film when they're doing like the whole mind jump moment.
I loved that.
I didn't know. I want to go into that a little bit more later, but when they're doing the whole mind jump moment, I didn't know that was Ben Mendelsohn's voice.
Yeah.
But I love that delivery that was going on of like, rewind that. Oh, I know, close. Like the dialogue delivery on that was so great. And then when you get to the reversal of it, what I thought was neat about Ben Mendelsohn's performance is there's an issue that I've heard with the makeup, and I halfway agree, of the makeup kind of on the Skrulls can make their facial expressions and mouth seem kind of stiff in the way they're communicating.
Yeah.
I felt like Ben Mendelsohn worked with that to give a good, especially noticed it the second time around, to have this like really dry delivery with the humor.
And a calm energy, even in the harsher situations,
Yeah, to have this sort of endearing quality. Like, he used it to his advantage, I thought, for the body language and the physicality of playing Talos.
Yeah. Well, and that's a kind of humor, too, that they bring into these movies that I do really appreciate, because you gotta imagine that even though, these are intergalactic creatures and stuff like that, they still have a day in, day out.
Yeah.
Because there's so many moments with him that are humorous because they're just small moments that you wouldn't expect an alien to really care about. And to that, the other half of that is what then happens with Yon Rogg, and the whole flip with the Star Force, basically being
which
against
we all
her.
saw coming.
Yeah, totally. But those things I appreciated, and going back and seeing it a second time, there are a lot of great little subtleties and nuances in the performances from both Jude Law and Ben Mendelsohn that really clue you in. And it's like if you've seen the movie, you know what happens, then you can pick up the little clues the second time, which is really fun.
Sure. A common complaint that I hear with this movie, and I'll give it to you guys, that this movie doesn't do enough of it, and maybe because of time or whatever the story is at hand they're trying to tell, with the lack of exploring the Kree and Skrull history of knowing why exactly these guys hate each other. I don't really feel this. So maybe the flip would have been more effective on both ends if there was more of that really explored and felt. Absolutely, it would have been more effective. For this story at hand, though, I thought it was it was fine.
Yeah. I mean, because the second time I actually sat and thought, well, I mean, he's telling a convincing story, but you don't really know what life with the Skrulls is like. They could be just as terrible, as what he's telling you. So, and they do things to alleviate that. But yeah, if the movie had more breathing room to bring you into the history, you might not find yourself wondering that when such reversals come along.
And weirdly, when he reunites with his family on the hidden ship, I got a little misty. The second time I watched it, I got a little misty-eyed.
Yeah.
Because I was expecting it, and I understood more of the character watching it a second time around. So by the time you get to that point, you do feel for him. So yeah, I do like that moment. And also, Jude Law as Yon Rogg, I think he's really good in this movie.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of people kind of just brush him off as like, yeah, he's just Jude Law being Jude Law. I wouldn't say that. I feel like
he's got a menace.
He's layered. I love his charisma in the movie. The way he handles a lot of his lines. One of the funniest moments for me comes from a predictable joke. When he was that final scene that he has with Carol, where they're building it up, he's gonna fight him. He's gonna fight Carol, and he's ready to
holsters his gun.
Yeah,
I am so proud of you.
Like the way he it was so obvious that he wasn't gonna fight her. Like that joke was both the first time I saw him, like, oh, he's not going to. That's the punchline.
He's being a weasel.
But the way he handles that delivery both times got me to laugh really hard.
I laughed out loud. Yeah, it's because it's just so unexpected, and also his delivery is so great. Because he's like, for a split second, he sounds like a dad.
Yeah.
Or something, whose like kid just brought home like an A+ on a spelling test.
Goose in this movie.
Goose.
I did say in the non-spoiler that I thought Goose was pretty much enriched by the interaction Sam Jackson has with Goose. That's how I felt about it, because it's easy to have an adorable fucking cat in the movie.
Cat, that's the internet. Just go on the internet, cats are adorable.
What makes it funny is Nick Fury is just... just the whole time,
the untough side of Nick Fury, he's just so all about it, and it's nice to see him a little bit cuddly.
And what they call a flirkin?
A flirkin, yeah.
That moment when the flirkin first swallows the Tesseract, I thought it was so funny. Like the way they handle the comedic editing of that, when he drops the cat after. Or I remember the first time I watched it when it's attacking all the Kree people on the ship. I remember being in the audience just, whoa! Yeah. It's a really, I loved that element to it. I thought Goose was a delight for me. I don't think Goose steals the show. I don't think Goose is the best part of the movie, like how some people are making Goose. I feel like I have 2 cats. I'm a cat lover. So, yeah, do I love Goose? Sure, goes without saying. But I don't think it steals the show. I do think the Goose element was effective. But see, a lot of the lead up to it though was that's Carol's cat. That's Carol's cat. Yeah. And I didn't get any of that in the movie.
Yeah.
Carol seems to not give 2 shits about the cat.
Yeah, the cat seems to just kind of be chilling at Pegasus, and then just kind of tags along after that.
Yeah, that's essentially it.
Yeah, and we get the Nick Fury's eye explanation out of that. The last time I trusted somebody, I lost an eye, and he even blatantly, I didn't even make that connection. Shouts out to Andrew at the Movie Source channel, because he says, I'm trusting you not to eat me.
Oh, I got I got that the first time I watched it. Now here's where I'm also conflicted. Because they were teasing that we're going to learn about what happens to his eye in this movie. I don't know if it was like in the press leading up to it, if they teased it, but early on in the movie when he gets into that car crash, he has got a messed up eye. You're like, oh, is that the moment? Is that how he lost his eye? No, they pulled it out. Yeah. Oh, is it going to happen in this movie? I don't know. And in that, I thought, this is where I'm also conflicted. I'm kind of with the audiences on this one who are very much against that moment. Because my mind, once I saw, it was when Coulson comes with all the eyeballs, like, oh, that is how he lost his eye.
Yeah.
In terms of the context of the one film alone of Captain Mar-Vell, that is funny to me.
Yeah.
And it's not out of the realm for me for him to lie by omission. Or blatantly lie, like he
confirm nor deny.
In Avengers Assemble, he flat out lies about Coulson to get them motivated to work together.
Yeah,
he does that. So I'm like, for him to lie, not a big deal. For him to upsell, not a big deal. The thing, though, is my mind immediately did go to Winter Soldier, because there's a very cool, badass moment in Winter Soldier when he's talking about the trusted moment and he reveals the eye, and it alludes, for an audience member, all this buildup of not knowing what happens, and they don't lay it out in that movie either, but you set yourself up for... That's probably the day we see that, or the day we learn that's gonna be a badass. It's got to be like a big fucking moment.
It's got to be badass or traumatic or something.
Yeah,
you know?
And then you get this moment where they sacrifice that for the expense of a joke. And so I'm saying within the context of the movie itself, it's funny to me. Like, that was funny. But overall, I am in the middle ground there where I'm like,
yeah.
It's kind of a letdown, they sold it out for a Mar-Vell joke, but fine.
Because, then next time you watch the other movie, you're going to be sitting there going, oh, because the cat.
Exactly.
You're going to be reminded of a
that's not a badass moment anymore.
Yeah. So I feel you. I would probably meet you about there with it.
Yeah, because I'm like, when I watch the movie, it's funny, but then when I think about the rest and the whole Nick Fury thing, I'm like, yeah, it's kind of... stupid now. So I am there with that, and I think there's other big things to talk about too, but I think the other big one is changing the project initiative to
the Danvers initiative.
The Danvers initiative.
Danvers assemble.
I'm assembling a Carol Danvers team.
A team of Carol Danvers. Because you don't see what he types. And there are like 4 words on the side of that jet.
The initiative.
The Carol initiative. Yeah. We're going to sing across the galaxy. But yeah, that was
for everyone who has been hating anything about feminism to do with this movie, or hates Brie Larson or whatever. They're not going to be happy with that at all. I mean, I haven't even looked up what the response is for everyone who's learned about that. They're not going to be happy about it.
I mean, I guess I get why. For me, it was just a detail I didn't need. It felt like they kind of just shoved it.
I feel like they shoehorned it.
Yeah, it was just like, oh, okay.
I feel like names come from everywhere, but you know, just look at our fucking non-spoiler review, or look at half the things people are these people are saying. You know, like. Something like for the Avengers to be named after a woman, after Carol Danvers, it doesn't matter to me. Like, for me personally, I'm like, nah, I don't care. He came up with a name. Like, you know, that's for me. That's about it.
He repurposed a word.
That's about for me. That's
not like Carol invented the word.
If they're, I don't know if they're gonna drive it home even further. If in Endgame they bring back Nick Fury, and Nick Fury's like, I named the Avengers after you, you know?
So y'all gotta listen to her now.
Yeah, if that's what they turned it into, then okay, that's a problem in some ways, yes. I could see it being an issue because even though I did like her more in this movie, I do want to talk a little bit more about my issues with Carol in this movie and the grand scheme of things. But really quick, some other stuff. Ronan the Accuser. Wasted in this movie. Didn't need to tease him at all that he was in it. Probably would have been better if he didn't tease him at being in this at all. It would have been less disappointing.
Yeah, because he just stands and looks out a window.
That's my favorite part, is when Jude Law wrote it, and he's still standing in that same hologram pose.
Just holding that hammer, waiting for something cool to happen.
It's the same pose the entire movie, just waiting by. It's not even like, let it ring.
Yeah, no,
he's not even like, let me get my hat and hammer on. He's just waiting for that call.
You really get the sense that Ronan just stands by this one window all the time. And yeah, I mean, he's periphery at best to the movie overall. I mean, there's a moment where he hints like, "Oh, we'll be back for the weapon." Yeah, you mean whatever the woman.
The other goofy element to me is her name's Verse. I don't know if it's in the comics. Veers.
Oh, Veers, yeah.
Because I just imagined like when they were calling her Veers, and the second time watching it, I just kept going, how'd they come to that name for her in it? Was when she woke up, was it just like I just imagine one of those scenes when someone's like making up a story and they're like, I met a guy, his name was Can.
I got half of this dog tag.
He's just like,
I only have half of her name, it's your whole name now.
Your name is Veers. You know what I'm talking about? It just seemed like you couldn't have prepped something in advance, or were people like one of those You know what I'm talking about? Like those like terrible sitcom jokes.
Yeah, yeah.
They're like, hey, I met a doctor named Dr. Shirt. You know?
Name's Jones. Enema bag Jones.
Yeah, something like that.
That's
That's how that moment when I learned the name read to me. Yeah, the
but
first
it is
time
motivated. It is motivated by her dog tag.
Yeah,
But
okay.
but it is a little bit like this is just a made up word.
Yeah, exactly. Was anyone part of the Star Force team like, is that even a name?
Do y'all not know what dog tags are?
Does that have a meaning? Or did you just read half of her name and you couldn't come up with a name for her?
You're a team of soldiers. You must have an equivalent of a dog tag. You know?
Yeah.
You must have some kind of way of knowing, oh, this is incomplete.
Oh, yeah. Was it incomplete or could he not come up with a name so we just call her Pierce?
Well, this is all we have now, so we gotta name you.
Going a little too much off of that here. Maria and Monica Rambeau in this. Okay, yeah, it was all the big stuff, right? And these are all our things now. We'll talk a little bit about, female empowerment moments. Are they really in your face, or is that more of an issue with Brie Larson as the person? Yeah. There's got some stuff to go through here. But yeah, I started with Maria and Monica Rambeau. I love Maria Rambeau in this movie.
Yeah.
I thought she brought so much of the necessary history to be felt. Not like we need giant exposition dump into all their training and friendship together. You could see it in the one scene where she's laying it all out to her about like, no, is this strange to me that you come back with these powers? No, what's strange to me is, yeah,
you're a whole other person now.
You're a whole other person.
I barely know you know.
Yeah, she thought she was dead this whole time, and their dynamic was great. And it didn't even hit me until the second time I was watching it. I feel like some people will harp on the feminist elements to this. The stuff that they felt was very shoved in their face. Which I don't honestly feel like there's a lot of that. I don't really... Are there stuff that could have been a little more subtly handled? Yeah.
There are a couple fourth wall breaking jokes. Like, they're like when the guy tells her, like, you should smile more. Like, that's a moment where
At the same time, though, that's a real thing women deal with.
No, 100%. Yeah. But that is one of the more overt instances of something like that.
Or when she, like, hits, but I feel like that moment's a little more earned when Jude Law's like, hit me, fight me, and then she hits and says, I don't need to prove anything to you.
Oh, totally. Yeah,
like,
and that's like totally core, a feminist idea,
Like, but I thought that's the end of the movie. It's earned. Let him have it. And also, I don't also feel like this movie does anything where they're saying, because first off, and we're going to talk more about this in the other video, feminism does not mean men suck. Feminism is simply equality. And
for everybody.
So yeah, this movie doesn't have any angle or agenda of men suck. No. And that's where I feel like this movie does none of that. Yeah, so don't worry about it. It's not demeaning to men at all in this movie.
The aspects of feminism that are the most prominent here, I mean, you can take just the diversity of the cast as an indicator of feminism. Because, yeah, truthfully, I think the term itself confuses a lot of people to make it seem like a women versus men thing, but really feminism is just about equal treatment for people of all races, genders, physical abilities, ages, etc.
Yeah.
And the arc for Captain Mar-Vell, for Carol Danvers, is a self-actualization thing. She's grown up in this society that has kind of washed her brain a certain way, and she is learning to tap into her own strength, her own potential, and to be independent. And so at the end, when she says, I don't have to prove anything to you, it feels earned. And also, if you look at Yon Rogg, he is clearly just desperate and using a different angle because he knows she's got him beat.
Yeah, exactly. And that's so for me, I'm like, there's a lot of other context behind that moment. Yeah. And I feel there was one moment though, because what I loved in this movie was that there's no love interest she has, and that is not talked about. Mm-hmm. Like, maybe someone has. I haven't heard it yet.
I noticed it, but and I appreciated it, but I didn't bring it up.
It wasn't until the second viewing where I'm like, they didn't go out of their way at all to shove in my face that there's no love interest in this movie.
You barely missed it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's subtly done, and it's the most kind of personal love dynamic in any capacity would be the friendship she has with Maria Rambeau in this movie.
And I think that's an important thing to represent, especially too, like a female
Support.
friendship. Yeah. Like, and because that is a strong bond, and that is something too that has changed just in culture over time. You know, I feel like there was a lot more pressure years ago, and I've heard women say this, you know, for women to be at odds with each other. So to have such a loving friendship between the two of them, and have that being so much of the emotional core of the movie.
I mean, you
great.
still get the woman at odds with each other with the Gemma Chan character, so you get the best of both worlds in this movie.
Yeah, of course. I mean, but even then, you understand because there are ideologies, and she just doesn't like her. You know,
And I do want to touch on this because this isn't like responding to a comment. There was one moment where I genuinely had to catch my male thought process, and what I've been preconditioned to. There's a really first off, it is a very corny scene. You put guys in there, a dude and a little boy, and I'd find it just as equally corny. It's the moment where she's like trying to figure out what her suit is, and Monica is like playing around and trying to find the right colors and stuff, and it's such a corny superhero moment. In my mind, did go as a dude. This is my Liam Neeson moment. this is me.
I went out there looking for some female bastard.
It's just me admitting a thought process. But I checked myself like right away. I was like, oh, they're really doing that whole thing for like something for little girls to look up to.
The future generation.
Yeah, that's where my mind went. But then once I thought that, I went, well, Iron Man 3 had a whole thing about a little boy and Iron Man and their bond. That's like a big part of the movie and the inspiration there. And there's other elements of that in other comic book movies where little boys, you know? So why not have it with a little girl this time around?
And you start to think to yourself, you know, little boys are probably going to see this movie, identify with that kid, and feel special about it. So why can't a little girl have that too?
Yeah,
know?
Exactly.
And
but my mind did have that. I would probably consider that a preconditioned sexist thought because I was like, they're shoving this in my face. And I went, but wait a minute, when they do it with little boys, I don't even think about that.
Well, and two, it's motivated.
So I learned something from that.
It's like she and Monica also do have a relationship. We see some flashbacks, and when Carol gets to the house, it's Monica who's filling her in on, this is what you did this time, here's your Halloween costume, and like clearly they're close.
There.
My only issue with that is that when she picks the colors, she just automatically knows how to do it. But
we didn't talk about the mid or post credit scene.
Oh, hey.
So like the biggest ones.
So she kills Thanos in the mid credit scene.
That's the biggest part of this whole thing.
Oh yeah.
So
we find out what happens when that pager goes off.
So the mid credit scene looks like it's just a scene out of Endgame.
It does. It literally does.
Probably a cut up scene. Because they did that with Ant-Man, and then they showed a scene from Civil War, but they edited it down, and it feels like they probably did an edited down version. People love that scene. They think it's like such a badass moment. It is a badass moment. For me, I always read it as a horror movie moment. Every time it happens, it's like a jump scare.
Whoa! Where'd you come from?
Where's Fury? See, the thing about this movie that this raises questions in a lot of ways of timeline, lineage, where's Captain Marvel been? It makes you wonder, like, see, when I look at this as a standalone movie, it's fine. When I look at this in the greater grand scheme of things, it raises questions. Of, okay, if Nick Fury was worried about intergalactic space travel or people attacking or whatever and encountered aliens, it makes you flash back to Avengers Assemble. Or like, why didn't he call Carol then? You know? Why did everyone seem unprepared for this if this happened in the 90s? You know?
We're already used to supers and like a pretty damn powerful one at that.
Already. The whole thing with the Tesseract, I actually kind of lose track of those things with the Tesseract, to be perfectly honest. Because I know there was in Captain America, Stark gets it, on the ocean, it appears at the post-credit scene of Thor, you know? So I'm like, for me, I kind of am like, whatever, I'm not so hung up on that lineage. I am more in the prequel syndrome, because it's not a prequel, but it takes place in the past. So I am caught up in that thing of, well, why didn't they do this? Why didn't they call Carol before? There's been plenty of instances where you probably should have called Carol, but maybe they thought we have Thor on our hands, or like there are certain debate moments that happen in Avengers, specifically that one, where I go, you should have been prepared then, or you should have called Carol.
Yeah, and this is a greater issue just with shared universe comic book films overall to me, is I feel like it's very easy, especially the more powerful a character is, to just start going, well, why didn't they just call that guy? And
well, yeah, no, the Avengers movies, the MCU in general has this problem.
Yeah, totally.
This is not just a Captain Marvel problem. Like, there were so many times you're like, why didn't you call the Avengers?
Yeah. Why do you have these other, like, lower tier people dealing with this massive problem?
Yeah, exactly.
These guys could just do it in, like, 20 minutes.
There's plenty of times where you've been like, why didn't you assemble the team,
Yeah, and so I guess you're just left to go, oh, maybe she was just so busy with so many other things to stop. I don't know. Yeah, it is one of those plot holes that you don't really know what to do with.
And for all these people who just want us to hate this movie, here you go. I'm going to go into my script and acting problems with the film, all right? Things that I do have real issues with in terms of how it's executed. Carol's arc. The first time I watched it, I didn't even really realize she had an arc. Honestly, I didn't. I was like, it kind of just... So much is happening. There's a lot of mumbo jumbo that I was like, if there's an arc, it totally flew past me. To me, it just seemed like she just kept getting stronger and more undefeatable as the movie went. And then it hit me more this time around, like, oh, I see it now. The thing is, her arc, script-wise, is not set up well in this movie. With it, I didn't realize where her... I feel like for an arc, it's okay to have an arc either be predictable or at least hint at what the potential of an arc is going to be. In this movie, I don't even know what her arc's going to be until a moment before the arc happens. And that's not because they cleverly, subtly hit it. I just personally don't think it's executed well, where she's talking with the Supreme Intelligence. She's talking, Annette Bening, in that moment. And you're really, like, we gave you the powers, we made you a better version of yourself. And the thing is, I don't feel any of Carol Danvers' prior struggles before her getting the energy, and it's kind of all being laid out. Like, they tease it early on when they're doing, like, the mindfuckery moment of, you're a woman in the Air Force pilot, or why are you here?
People are always underestimating you, and you're always proving you're tough as nails, basically, is a lot of her backstory.
But I didn't really feel that backstory was properly explored enough in a way where I could have really felt for that arc, or have possibly seen that arc coming to the point where when that arc happens, it feels like a truly rewarding, empowering moment for Carol Danvers, as opposed to when they're doing that montage of the many times Carol stands up the same exact way,
Yeah.
As a little girl, to every single moment, the same stand, same pose, which is a cool visual thing. But when that happens, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's what her arc is. That's kind of how it read to me in the moment, as opposed to me feeling because she doesn't struggle in this movie. That's the thing that happens. Is like there's no real weaknesses emotionally that are truly presented, other than some moments of expositional dialogue here in the film. Oh, should I keep going?
If you want to. I mean, I can jump in. I just want to make sure you were at a resting point.
Well, to me, her emotional journey really doesn't begin until she gets the files at Pegasus. Where she starts going, oh shit, my past is linked here. And then she's on the telephone with Yon Rogg saying, like, I know for sure my past is here. I see her. She's getting a little misty-eyed. And then she's being told to repress her emotions. Yeah. If the movie doubled down more on those kind of elements, because one thing I talked about in my non-spoiler was I felt this should have been like something where it's like, okay, on the surface she has to be emotionless, but there's got to be something where there's something like some depth. I said Wonder Woman meets Jessica Jones, have that depth underneath of like her humor and sarcasm stems from all this repression or whatever, And then in that moment, you get it. You get that tease. And then that's why by the time you get to the moment where she hears the black box recording and all the memories come back, I don't even know who I am. And then all of that could have been teetered out a little bit better. I don't think the arc, when you get to that moment, it's like there's an arc here. I don't think script-wise it's built to it well. is what I'll say.
That's fair. I'm torn on this personally because, especially talking after the first viewing, I definitely think that it is a valid criticism of this movie that a lot of the personal stuff with Carol is handled through other characters kind of outside of her.
Yeah, like Maria saying, "You're stronger before I met." I'm like, but I never saw any of that.
Yeah, for my viewing experience of this movie and just as an element amid the medley of elements the movie is trying to achieve, both times I wasn't really bothered by the handling of Carol Danvers. And watching it the second time, I did find that there are not prolonged moments a lot of the time, but I thought that they did actually have intimate moments with Carol. They are kind of subdued, and I can understand totally why somebody would be kind of less than connected to her if you're viewing the movie a certain way. But for me, I found it compelling because, yeah, you're watching her break out of an indoctrinated state of mind. You know, forgive me, but, you know, you're watching her kind of become woke to the idea that she has been sort of, again, brainwashed into a certain scenario. She is learning to embrace herself and her power and learn to stand on her own and to think for herself. But also, I enjoyed that they made her origin story, not just how she got her powers, but who she is, part of the goal of the movie, so that as the movie is going forward and she's trying to, basically complete her mission on Earth that's the plot mission, she's also trying to find out more about who she is, and that is something that sets in over time because, you know, during the course of the movie she learns, oh, this life on Hala is not my actual life, you know, and now I'm finally going to get some answers to the question marks. It's like she doesn't have that much history. She's only got 6 years worth of memories when we start the movie, and she's constantly being coached to keep her emotions in check. So with all those details in mind for my own viewing experience, again, I actually had a fine time connecting with her both viewings. But I also do think it's a very valid criticism that she could have used more personal moments to herself as opposed to through other people.
Well, if you're not going to give her any real external struggles throughout the film, you got to give her more internal struggles and more showing, less telling intermittently. Because that's the thing, is like, that's all there, what you're talking about, but it's just told to you at certain chunks in certain scenes, as opposed to properly, like, pacing it out or fleshing it out throughout the thing. Because it's all there. Maybe it's an issue with execution, and there are some certain acting scenes that I really just do not click with of Brie Larson in this movie. I thought she was better the second time I watched her. There's certain choices, like the scene that really flashes to mind to me that I just really do not like. I don't know if it's the directing or just her acting, because it's sort of like, I don't think it could be. Maybe it's a script. It's the scene when Mar-Vell, when they're listening to the black box, then fucking crashes down, and that level of high intensity in a space battle you've never had before, you know, she's so nonchalant and so calm about everything. They crash, there's like no pulse pounding. I'm like, no, your adrenaline would be pumped. I don't care who this is your first time experience this. Your adrenaline would be pumping right now. Yeah. And she comes out and sees freaking Mar-Vell, and you're like, your blood is blue. Oh. And, and then pulls her down. I find it weird that you're an alien, but, you know, after everything, like, it's just so like nonchalant about it that I'm like, nah, this is poor. Whatever it is, I don't think Brie Larson is a poor actress. It could have been a poor choice. It's poor choices right here, which goes hand in hand with a lot of the lack of stakes that happen throughout the film. I feel, because that's what I mean. Like, none of the internal, like those moments could have really elevated a lot of this film, because not having enough of physical threats. You know, like, I think there's a moment that a lot of people are very back and forth on, which is the what's the song that plays where she's like, when she unleashes her powers and she's fighting all the Star Force.
Oh, no doubt. I'm Just a Girl. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That scene, I like the way it's cut. I do. I think it's fun. I think that Star Force, they could have done a better job scripting wise, visual, if they showed us at all what makes Star, because like there are moments where they tease like, oh dude, he's got the sword, the guy with the fucking like just lightsaber gloves or whatever. Yeah. like they're a cool, where like you could have set this up where it could have seemed like a challenge in some capacity for her to fight these ultimate warriors, but that's never demonstrated. So one part of me is like, this is really fun. The other part of me is there's no tension at all in these fights.
I understand again, but especially the second time, that particular fight with that particular music cue clicked with me because of where it fell and because of what happened after. Because she fights the rest of the Star Force sans Yon Rogg in that sequence when she's just fully realized herself, she's fully unlocked her power, and she's about to go kick some ass. And I thought it was appropriate there because at that moment I was like, I don't think this is going to be the fight in the structure that she's about to lose. And when it changes shape, when it goes beyond that moment, you do get score music for the rest of the fight when she goes up against Jude Law. And so in that moment, I was like, yeah, I think it's appropriate for this to be fun and cool because then later it'll get more heavy and more traditional in the movie sense. And that's a moment where, again,
does it ever become heavy? That's the thing. It seems like whatever, like, because that's another issue is that when she gets her powers, part of the fun of like Marvel origin characters is when they're learning how to use their powers. And in here, she kind of just, she's never flown, you know, she's never done these, like the most she's done, and she has some fight skills, but she's doing all kinds of shit. Or you know, she's like fucking like she's handling shit like it's no. That's what I mean. Like not one fight in there is there tension for her. I mean, like Yon Rogg for a brief second gets a little bit of a handle on her when she puts her up against the wall in the lunch, but she immediately overpowers him. You know, all the missiles start coming from Ronan. Sure, you know, like
well, and two, I think perhaps for me, just a lot of the thrust of the fights is from how punchy they are just assembled physically. I thought it's
entertaining as fuck.
Yeah. And so,
but there's no tension.
And so this is another part of this movie where I'm like, it really worked for me, but that's a very fair criticism. You know, it's like for my whatever arrangement of levels I was taking this in at, I thought that was appropriate. But
yeah. I mean, so could I have used more weight through Brie Larson's portrayal from the writing and acting? Absolutely, I really could have, because it's kind of weird how my main takeaways and the things I really talk about and love are never close to little to do with Brie Larson in this movie. You know, like a lot of it's like the supporting cast and everything. Yeah. And but the thing is, another reason why I recommend it is because there are plenty of cool, very visual palette scenes in here that I really love. That whole toying with the mine sequence when we first get there. Both times I've watched it, I fucking love that moment. The way the dialogue is handled in the background with Talos, and then the way the sequence is playing out with Mar-Vell going like the redoing the memory over and over again just to get the name on the tag.
It's so disconcerting, and then you sort of have to orient yourself and figure out what they're doing. Or when it's such a creative sequence.
Or when she like flies from the plane up and then gets thrown back down, like ejects, like forcing her to live in the memory.
Yeah, like managing her mind into the right place they need.
Like that's great. The effects of like the supreme intelligence and that world building too, I thought was really well done. And so like I love that when he punches her in the mouth and just goes through and throws her up against the wall.
And it's like the mirror from the Matrix almost.
Yeah. Like the mix of worlds and space sequences I think are all really cool. Like I love when she first gets in the ship. And like when she's escaping the Skrull ship and it's that one shot and everything behind her. Yeah. Like that's some really cool stuff. Or the moment where she gets hit with the energy blast. That's like beautiful.
Especially in 4DX or ScreenX.
ScreenX, that's great.
Yeah.
But even in regular format, that's great.
It's beautiful. And it's one of those Marvel slow-mo, like it looks like a painting kind of shots. You know?
Yeah, it's a great moment. So I feel like they're like from humor, entertainment, connection. Maybe I don't connect with Carol, but I connect with the supporting cast. And that's like, there's plenty enough here to really like why I find it fun. And I liked her more the second time. Is she the least strong out of all the performers for me in this movie? Yes. But I feel like there's a lot of performers in here, you know? Yeah. And also, you know, there's like a couple of minor problems I have with the film here or there too. Like, one moment I really like is when Agent Coulson is in the car with Sam Jackson, the chase, and then finds out that that's a Skrull. Yeah, I thought that's a cool, like, ooh, that's a cool moment.
Yeah.
But the second time around, I was like, why does this Skrull have a gun? Like my mind, the second time I watched it goes, when would this switcheroo have happened exactly? But like, okay, whatever. I didn't see it. It happened off screen. I could buy that. All right, whatever. But then he pulls out a handgun, and I'm like, wait a minute. What are the powers of the? Can they replicate a handgun? Did he steal a handgun?
In the glove box or something?
He pulled it out of his jacket.
Like,
I'm like,
around.
Wait a minute, where'd the handgun come from? Like little things like that.
Yeah.
Or when they get in the crash and then the police start showing up and you hear them off screen, and then Sam Jackson pulls out his badge and is like, it's like a Cinema Sins moment of just like official SHIELD activity. I'm like, but they're in their car driving. They can't hear him.
Okay, yeah. Fair enough.
I'm like, it's a movie thing, it's a little thing. And you had a thing about them like going to space.
Truthfully, especially seeing this the second time around, I went in because of all the controversy. I was like, all right, I'm just going to take this as license to just test my original experience. And I found through this movie that I pretty much I just liked all the stuff that I liked the first time. But both times, the moment where they have the debate about Maria going on the journey just doesn't work for me. And I think that is one example of a plot point that I think is just kind of lazy to get us to point B, because both times I've seen it when, Monica makes the case of like, but you used to go and fly these test planes and stuff. This is your passion. And both times my mind filled in the blank with, but that was before I had a human child to be responsible for. And she's like, what kind of example are you setting for your daughter? And I'm like, I guess one where you leave your daughter and go fight a dangerous space mission where you could easily die.
I have an argument for you, though.
Okay, please.
If it was gender reversed.
I just don't think, like, the kid convincing the parent and the parent just stopping there and being like, well, my kid wants me to go.
It's a lazy plot point. It's a lazy maneuver, honestly, and it's really poorly handled. It should have been more of a debate and a moment.
It just didn't convince me.
No, like that. It could have worked if there wasn't just like a couple of lines.
Yeah, exactly. It's like if that scene had an actual debate instead of addressing the debate and then just skipping to a very, I think, manipulative
Prince of Bel-Air.
To get a 90s joke and kind of a manipulative plot point where it's the kid's idea, so it's okay.
Yeah.
But, that kind of bugged me.
And I did notice the second time around, the 90s nostalgia stuff isn't as shoved in your face as I thought it was. It's just there are certain audience members who would anything 90s at all. I'm like, is this how people, when they watch movies that are based in the 70s, who were born in the 70s, react? Ha 70s! Like,
big lapels! Bell bottoms!
I'm like, it's not that funny just because that's a 90s thing. It's just the 90s, guys. It's not that funny.
Yeah, I found myself...
It's the audience members who make it annoying.
I found myself enjoying those gags when the crowd wasn't losing their shit. Like, it was. I flashed back, the first screening, I flashed back to, like, one of those parody movies where the joke is like, look, it's a person we recognize, and that's the joke. And I was like, oh yeah, look, an internet cafe. Ta-da!
Yeah.
But yeah, those moments do, I think, go down better when, just not everyone's treating them like they're the most inspired comedy.
Yeah.
Because they're to be expected, and they're cute,
Well, guys, I mean, overall, I don't think it's one of Marvel's had a lot of movies, guys. And I don't think it's one of their top 5, or I probably wouldn't even put it in their top 10. But when I say that, like, I liked it the first time, the second time I really liked it. I'm not in love with this movie, but I think it's a very, very, very enjoyable movie. Like so much. Yeah. Totally. And do I think you should watch this over Alita, or should you watch Alita over this? Just go watch both of them.
Both.
I recommend both these movies.
They're both different.
I think Alita is good, and I like Alita, and I feel like Alita has flaws, but I liked it, and I recommend it. Captain Marvel, same thing. Are there flaws? Yeah. Do I like it? Yes. Like, they're both fine. Just go watch them. They're both good. Like, go fucking enjoy yourself.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like, once I cashed my check from Marvel, I really enjoyed this film. And I honestly, I enjoyed the film the first time, kind of in most respects. And the second time, I had kind of the same experience. I was just like, I really like this. I think there are things that could be improved, but I think it's really tight. It's really creative. It bends a lot of worlds and genres. It has so many things going for it. And for me personally, just my own taste of the Marvel films, this is one I think that is going to sit closer to the top, maybe not top 5, but sit in a place where it is more memorable to me than some of the other ones, because I do think it has some distinct qualities that it deserves credit
when people were like, finally a non-biased review, I was kind of taken aback by that because I'm like, of course it's non-biased. And then I realized after looking so much up, which we'll talk about in the next video, I was like, oh damn, there was this whole thing I did not follow. There were only things I heard hints about with the controversy behind this movie leading up to it that I just did not pay attention to because I am not someone who really engages on the social media rage. Well, and so I missed out on it. So like going into this, the amount of hate we got for not hating this movie threw me for a loop. Yeah. And then I looked into it, I'm like, oh, this makes a lot more sense now. You know?
Yeah, and it's something that I've come to be very wary about big movies because of, because with a movie like this especially, and from a critical standpoint, it's kind of hard to walk in to your first viewing of a Captain Marvel when you have all of this stuff kind of swarming around your head, and I feel like that can easily hamper the experience and make you self-conscious, and you have all these ideas. And weirdly enough, as much as I was aware of the conversation, it didn't really affect my viewing the first time, and I appreciate that. But yeah, there's been some undue ugliness around this movie that really bums me out because I don't think it's necessary at all, and I don't think it's warranted.
I hope this movie makes $1 gajillion.
Yeah, I mean, like
I don't love it to the degree. I don't want to make $1 gajillion for that fact. I want it to make $1 gajillion just because of just to upset all those people.
Well, yeah, and to fly in the face of the people who come in and just treat you like it's impossible to actually have just enjoyed this movie.
Yeah,
like, you can't fathom that authentically somebody could just have a different opinion from you.
Yeah,
like I feel like it was funny because when the first screening ended, I was sitting there going, "Yeah, we all had a great time, right, guys?" And then like everybody was mixed on it, and so I was like, "Oh,
see, I didn't want to say like this movie was met with applause the first time we watched it because people will be like press screening."
Yeah,
we saw this with just a regular crowd last night, and you know what? It was met with applause quite a few times. Yeah. So
people were into it.
Yeah, people were really when the movie ended, applause. When it said Carol Danvers will return in Avengers Endgame, applause. Like so, fuck yeah. Like if you're one of the people who just like was boycotting this for whatever agenda you got, fine, be that way. As this stands for a movie on its own, I think for the female audience and the female, I think, yeah, or whatever, we're two dudes. We like this movie,
I honestly, if you can't relate to a female superhero, I don't know how to help you because there's so much.
Plenty of male characters to enjoy too for you guys.
And the magic, I think part of the true magic of feminism is you look at a movie like this and you're like, man, woman, most of these roles you could have swapped the genders and it wouldn't matter. Like that's the great thing about Mar-Vell is like, yes, they made her a woman. It's not necessarily that way in the original version of the story, but it doesn't really change the character that much.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it intrinsically female somehow.
Yeah.
She's just an actress playing the role and she does a great job. Like,
oh guys, do you like this movie? What's your favorite moment out of it? Subscribe to The Real Rejects. Click that notification bell. These 3 Captain Marvel videos are going to cause us to lose so many subs, but I'd rather wean them out. Rather have you not return.
If you're about to just sign on and slag us as SJW.
Subscriber counts just don't mean shit to me anymore about that. And let's catch you guys later.